You're listening to the world of business and taxes with Mike Lodge, keeping you informed. So let's get started.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. I'm glad that you have joined me. We're continuing on with our lesson study as we discuss how to start a business, and this is number 8. This is brought to you by Lodge & Company, a business and tax advisory firm for small businesses and startups. Visit our website at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about us and what we can do for you. So, when starting a new business, and I know there's a lot of you out there, and I'm encouraging you to go out there and start a new business because 2017 is the best year to do it. I see good economic hope over the next few years. So when starting a new business, there are many issues you need to consider and do, especially in hiring employees. Compliance takes a good portion of your time. That is why we suggest you hire an accounting firm that specifically works with small business and knows the accounting, the tax, and HR issues that businesses will face. They can do it for you so you can focus on growing your business. They keep you in compliance. And I tell you, trying to keep in compliance, it takes a lot of work, especially when you are hiring new employees. There's a lot of HR issues that need to take place. So when you hire your first employee, if your business is booming, but you are struggling to keep up, perhaps it's time to hire some help. There are 8 steps that you can basically follow in the hiring process and ensure that you are compliant with key federal and state obligations. The number 1 for your business is obtain an employee identification number, what we also call EIN. You'll hear that a lot. When people are trying to do business with you, they'll send you a W-9 and they'll say, hey, tell us what your EIN number so that we know if you're a corporation, a partnership, an LLC, whatever that you may be, or a sole proprietorship. Before hiring your first employee, you need to get this employment identification number from the United States Internal Revenue Service, and you can do it online or hire someone to do it. When you originally set up your corporation or your business entity in a legal format, usually the individual that's doing it for you, and I do it for myself, I do it for my clients, is that I first obtain a EIN because it's vital. That's what the banks need. That's what everybody needs to do business with you. The EIN is often referred to as the Employer Tax ID. And normally you submit an SS4 or you can do it online at the IRS. And it's really quite a simple process, but it has to be done. So get your EIN number or call our office and we'll get you an EIN number. Step number 2. Set up records for withholding taxes. According to the IRS, you must keep record of employment taxes for at least 4 years. Keeping good records can also help you monitor the progress of your business. Prepare your financial statements, identify sources of receipts, keep track of deductible expenses, prepare your tax returns, and support items reported on tax returns. Remember what I've always said, documentation. When you put something on the tax return, make sure you've got the backup to support it. Okay? So here are 3 types of withholding taxes you need for your business. Federal income tax withholding, which is every employee must provide an employer with a signed withholding exemption certificate known as the W-4 on or before the date of employment. The employer must then submit the W-4 to the IRS. For specific information, read the IRS Employer's Guide, the Employer's Tax Guide. Federal Wage and Tax Statement. Every year, employers must report to the federal government wages paid and taxes withheld for each employee. This report is filed using Form W-2, Wage and Tax Statement. Employers must complete a W-2 form for each employee who they pay a salary or wage or other compensation. Now, some of you may be using independent contractors. So in place of the W-2, you have to file a 1099 MISC for miscellaneous income. You have responsibilities. You have to keep track of that, and that becomes part of your tax reporting process on your tax return. So think about those things, okay? Then you have to look at the state taxes that you're doing business in. Depending on the state where your employees are located, you may be required to withhold state income taxes. So you need to contact your local state and find out exactly what taxes that you're required to withhold for state tax purposes. Step number 3 is employee eligibility verification. Now, a lot of you think, okay, they're giving me the resume and then it's done. Unfortunately, federal law requires employers to verify an employee's eligibility to work in the United States. Within 3 days of hiring that individual, employers must complete Form I-9, Employment Eligibility Verification, which requires employers to examine documents to confirm the employee's citizenship or eligibility to work in the U.S. Employers can only request documentation specified on the I-9 form. So if you have not looked at the I-9 form, it's about time you did, and you can Google it. Just Google I-9 form, and you can see exactly what documents you are required to verify and take from that employee or prospective employee. Employers do not need to submit the I-9 form to the federal government, but are required to keep them on file for 3 years after the date of hire, or 1 year after the date of employee's termination, whichever is later. Employers can use information taken from the I-9 to electronically verify the employment eligibility on new hires. And you can do this by registering as an employer with the E-Verify. I use E-Verify in my office, and I do it for my clients. And that tells you immediately whether or not that employee or potential employee is eligible to work in the United States. And there are certain requirements that you have to go through. If it comes back negative and the person, there's some type of notation that says he's not eligible, then you have to talk to the employee. And they have a certain amount of time to rectify the issue, because sometimes there is misinformation, but very seldom, very, very seldom. The E-Verify system is really right on point. So each employee needs to have that, and it needs to be placed in their file. Listen, immigration can come into your office at any given time and say, please let me see the employee's file. And you have to show it to them because that's the law. Now, I must tell you this. State of California has some bills that is in the Assembly and in the Senate that is going to require employers not to comply with the federal government on immigration issues. I think that is an unconstitutional thing, because we already have a federal law that states that we have to do this, and now the state is saying you can't. Unfortunately, federal law supersedes state law, so we have a problem there. Okay. Number 4, register with your state's new hire reporting program. All employers are required to report newly hired and rehired employees to a state directory within 20 days of their hire or rehire date. You can visit the new hire reporting requirements page on my blog that I've posted today at www.wbtpod.com, and there's a link there that you can click on. Because everything that I'm saying now is also on that blog. So go to it and read it in full. Number 5, obtain workers' compensation insurance. All businesses with employees are required to carry workers' compensation insurance coverage through a commercial carrier on a self-insured basis or through their state workers' compensation insurance program. Now, a lot of you are thinking, well, I have independent contractors, so I don't need to do that. Well, unfortunately, if you are in the state of California, you still have to carry them under workers' compensation. And the other issue is if you are a realtor and you have realtors working for you, and which they are independent contractors, they also have to be under that workers' compensation in California. In other states, I'm not quite sure. I could look it up if you have a question. Step number 6, post required notices. Employers are required to display certain posters in the workplace that inform employees of their rights and employer responsibilities under labor law. I tell you, every single year I have to go out and buy a new poster to place on and I usually put it in the lunchroom of my offices here, so that people know, my employees know, that they can go to certain places to look up certain things. And it also tells what the current workers' compensation rules are. It also states what minimum wages, etc. So you have to post that. That is by law. Step number 7, file your taxes. And this is where so many small businesses get out of step. They get out of compliance because they get so busy in running their business and trying to grow it that they forget to file the taxes. I have had companies come into my office and we've had to go back 3 years in filing federal and state income taxes. Make sure that you file those tax returns on time. And we're not just talking about the business structure. We are talking about payroll taxes. Generally, employers who pay wages subject to income tax withholding, Social Security, and Medicare taxes must file IRS Form 941, which is the employer's quarterly federal tax return. Now, a lot of people don't know that, and so they don't file. And then pretty soon they get a big penalty because they have not filed the tax returns on time. The 941 is a tax return. Okay, so you need to file it on time. Number 8, get organized and keep yourself informed. Being a good employer doesn't stop with fulfilling your various tax and reporting obligations. Maintaining a healthy and fair workplace, providing benefits, and keeping employees informed about your company's policies are key to your business success. So what are some of the things that you can do? 1, set up record keeping. In addition to requirements of keeping payroll records of your employees for tax purposes, certain federal employment laws are also require you to keep records about your employees. And you can go to the following sites. There are, I'm not going to I tell you what, just go to www.wbtpod.com and you can click on the links there and look for the ones that say tax record keeping guidance, labor record keeping requirements, occupational safety and health act compliance, employment law guide, employees benefit chapter, apply standards that protect employee rights. So click on those links and it will take you to the websites that you need to know, okay? Complying with standards for employee rights in regards to equal opportunity and fair labor standards is a requirement. And it doesn't matter if you have a half of an employee or 1 employee or a dozen to 200, 500, whatever the amount of employees you have to remain in compliance with that requirement. Following statutes and regulations for minimum wage, overtime, and child labor will help you avoid error and a lawsuit. So it's vital that you remain in compliance with all of these things that we just talked about. And it is time-consuming to think that you're going to know all of these various laws and requirements. You're just not going to. You're a startup. But you need to know